This is the House of Hockey podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. Hockey is more than a game, it's a lifestyle. It's you, the diehard supportive fans, your favorite players who are on the team you cheer for and the organization who supports them.
The companies that make your gear, bags, and beer league sweaters. The hockey moms and hockey dads and everything else that makes this House of Hockey your home. Come on in. I'm Breezy.
And I'm Rae Rae.
And this is our house.
Welcome to the House of Hockey podcast, episode 11. I'm your girl, Rae Rae.
And I'm Breezy.
And we have a really amazing guest. I always say that, but our guests are just top notch. We're awesome. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. As should you, Breezy. But our guest this week is Lyndsey Fry. She is an Olympian. She played for the women's USA hockey team during 2012, right? At Sochi?
2014.
14, sorry.
Yeah.
And yeah, she has an incredible story to share about her journey of getting into hockey, getting onto the Olympics team, and what she's doing now for the sport of hockey. And it's amazing.
It is, yeah. She was really fun to talk to. I don't really know much about women's hockey, so for her to kind of walk us through the steps of what she's gone through to get to where she's at. I mean, she played for Harvard and she's gone through a lot to get where she was. And she kind of touched a little bit on the state of women's hockey now, which was really cool to hear. Obviously there's a lot of controversy there, but yeah, it was really cool to talk to her.
Yeah, especially because she's from a state and a city where there was not a lot of hockey growing up, and what she had to do being from Arizona and living in Arizona and having to travel. Where did she go? She stayed in the US, but she had to travel.
Colorado.
That's right.
Yeah. To
just find another, squad to really make it on a professional level. So it's a great chat. It's a great interview. She left our jaws on the floor, I think, during a lot of it. It was just like, we have 500 million more questions to ask you about all this. You've got to come back on, and we've got to dive into more stories with her for sure.
Yeah, I feel like we barely even scratched the surface on the whole Olympic series. So I think we definitely need to bring her back on, and maybe we can convince her to maybe bring on a guest or something. That would be kind of cool. She played with a lot of top dogs in the Women's Hockey League, and the names next to hers is by far fantastic as well. But yeah, all the names next to it are just as powerful. So crazy. Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. And we're going to talk about women's hockey right now, because as Breezy, you had just said, you don't know much about it. I didn't even know there was a pro women's league until like 3 months ago. And I mean, that's a testament to where the sport is at, right? With women's hockey, the lack of awareness and knowledge that it even exists. But as you touched on, there is a lot of controversy there used to be a different women's league, and a lot of the top players have formed a players association, basically, to help them get proper pay and travel accommodations and funding and all these kinds of things. But in the meantime, there's another league that started, the NWLPA, National Women's Professional League. No, that's not right. Hold on, let me look. National Women's Hockey League. NWHAL. Jesus Christ. Sorry, guys. You're all screaming at me right now. Whatever the acronym is. So clearly there's some stuff happening and the league is working. But that in the current pro league. It was founded in 2015. There's 5 teams. They're mostly on the East Coast of the US. Was an announcement that one of the teams has been added in Toronto because the Canadian Women's Hockey League folded a couple years ago, but the current iteration of the Women's Professional League has now expanded to 6 teams. They play 24 games. The season's October to March, and they actually live stream the games on Twitch TV.
Oh.
So they had a contract with them to put the games out and get them out to, a young audience and broadcast. And we've obviously seen the women, women of the professional caliber in hockey in the NHL space, right? With the All-Star games. Because you watched those, right, Breeze?
Yeah, the 3-on-3 that just happened this year. And then last year, they also brought them on for the skills comp, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was. So, I mean, it's starting to trickle in a little bit, but I feel like it's still so underground that it deserves a little bit more light than it has.
And have you ever been to any kind of women's hockey game, whether it be college, Team USA, Team Canada?
I haven't. So when they played out here at the Honda Center, the game that you went to,
yeah,
I was actually going to go. So Jason Withy and I were going to, and his wife, and we're going to take his 2 kids because he wants to introduce his daughter to women's hockey. So we were planning on going, but something ended up happening. But that would have been my first game that I would have gone to. But it looked incredible. It looked like a lot of fun, and it got a lot of hype, which was really cool.
Yeah, it was. It was part of the Team Canada, Team USA rivalry series that they created, because that's basically, that rivalry started with the Olympics in the year that Lyndsey was, right?
Yeah,
they lost,
I think so.
They lost, I think, to Canada that year.
Yeah.
Not to
right.
Neutral. That was a neutral statement. Just stating facts here, people. And it was a fiery game, but we've got to talk more about that later with Lyndsey. But anyway, that whole rivalry that's spurred is what's had them create this series. And what they did was they traveled, which was really smart, to multiple cities around Canada and the US to, again, bring more awareness to the women's game. And I was floored at that game. Yeah. Having never been to see women play, I really only feel like the difference for me as a fan was the fact that there's just a ponytail or a braid hanging off the back of their jersey.
Yeah, I mean, they still hit hard. They still, skate as fast. They still have the puck handling. I mean, I think that's what's underestimated is they think that, I mean, I've done my research. Obviously, I just said I've never been to a game, but I've done my research. I've watched live streams. Well, I guess pre-recorded live streams.
Right.
Whatever. You get the point. But, I mean, they still hit just as hard. And even Lyndsey touched on the base. She goes, no, you hit. And she was a bruiser. She even admits it. She played with the guys, and I mean, you're going to hear all about it, but she played with the guys, and she was afraid to even play in the Women's Hockey League because she thought she couldn't hit, and she thought basically life was over. So for all those who think that women's hockey is weak, it is not.
It is not.
And
get your butt to a game when the season and sports return and see for yourself, and you'll have just as much fun. It was awesome. I mean, I felt just as giddy going to Warmies looking for, Hillary Knight and Kendall Coyne Schofield on the ice and watching them, whip around and toss pucks. And it was just as thrilling for me as if I was watching, the men play.
Yeah. Speaking of, I follow Hillary Knight on Instagram. She's insane. She's ripped. Have you seen her?
She is.
I'm like, what is happening?
She is. She's abs
ripped. Yeah.
And her, I'm like,
she could put Tyler Seguin to shame for sure.
You might have to start a Hillary Knight night or something. That's so dumb.
It's so funny.
But if we're gonna do it, Seguin, what is it? Seguin Sundays, right? Not Saturday.
Yeah.
You've got to come up with a Hillary night once a month or something, you know, or like, I don't know.
That's funny. I don't know if you want to, I don't know. Although someone did ask if I would start a like women's hockey one, or I'm like I don't have time for this, people. You can do it.
You do it. Yeah. It's a lot of work.
You can do it. It's a lot. Social media is a lot of work.
It is. People think it's not, but it's a lot of work. What I was also going to say was that after our conversation with Lyndsey, she's also a coach and trainer and runs camps for girls who want to get into the sport now. And she's actually enlisted Breezy's and my help in a little training. Show us.
I'm hiding my address. I don't want anyone to come to my house, but I should probably hide hers too. But yeah, she sent us, I'll turn it around this way.
There you go.
She sent us a little demo to do, which I'm really excited for. I've never really done anything like this before. So, yeah, so we're gonna do a trial and see how it is. Not gonna give away too many secrets, but I think it's gonna be fun. I'm excited. I've never really been excited to do anything online before, so
good. Well, good. You mean your social media isn't exciting, Breezy?
I mean, like a class, you know?
Right.
Okay. So, but yeah.
I'm just giving you shit. Yes, a class. It's a class that involves hockey, and we'll leave it at that. And I've done a little bit of the first part of it, and I've been practicing, and it's holding me accountable to continue to learn hockey and to continue to practice during quarantine. And I actually just put together a video, Breezy, of my day one of learning to play hockey. And the day, whatever now, technically it's been like 2 months, but I haven't been practicing every day. I'm just going to be very transparent here. And I've actually made a lot of progress.
Really? I got to watch it.
I mean, the first video, I'm standing up. I'm not even bending my knees, but I had nobody telling me what to do at that point. At day one, nobody was offering me any advice, you know?
Were you just straight like penguin standing, like playing?
Like a tiny bend in the leg, but just sort of standing up with my arms out and flailing about and not having my hands. I didn't know about wrist rolls. I didn't know any of this stuff. And I look pretty decent. I mean, not that I can get on the ice anytime soon and whip around, but it's watching the progress from day one to now actually is really encouraging, especially when you're learning anything, to see how far you've come. Because as you know, and everybody listening knows, I've been very frustrated along this process and felt like a complete failure at certain points. And I'm, a little tough on myself.
It's rewarding to see the results. So
how's your practicing going? Are you still using your ice and your...
I get bored, so I'll take a break and I'll shoot a couple pucks and then I sit back down again. So it's fine. It's fun. I'd rather be outside, but it was weird weather out here lately. I mean, it rained on Monday, and then it was like, on Sunday it was like 80 degrees. Then it went down to like 60 degrees and rained. And then yesterday it was 73 degrees.
Yeah, it cooled off.
It's like, what's happening? So yeah,
I'm with you.
But practicing is few and far between, but I still pick it up every day and just shoot a couple pucks. That's all you got to do. Just shoot. That's fine.
Any other life updates? How's your kitchen coming? Your Breezy's BBQ?
Oh my gosh!
Are you grilling anything good?
Oh yeah. So I cook every day, but my favorite spice place is called Spiceology, and they have a bunch of these. It's really cool. Their branding is so sick. They have it's called like the periodic table of spices. It is so cool. So I'm pretty much redoing my entire spice drawer. So I'm having like all these like periodic table spices, And then they do these collaborations with like these barbecue guys that are super good. Like they're the best spices ever. So I used one. I cooked some T-bone steaks the other day, and I'm practicing my photography skills. So I'm kind of like doing both. I told you I was doing photography classes. So I took a picture of like a T-bone steak on like a wooden cutting board that's on like my fire pit with the Spiceology spice next to it, and they reposted it. They reposted it. It's on their feed, and they shouted me out. Yep. I fangirled.
Yes, you should. That's so exciting.
I was telling like everybody, and they're like, cool. I'm like, heck yes, it's cool.
You're like, you don't understand. This is huge.
This is my favorite spice guy. I'm just kidding. But no,
yeah,
it was
that's
exciting.
A big deal. It should be celebrated.
Cool. I saw it yesterday, and I was like, gosh, what else can I do to like keep getting that? Like, what do I have to do? Maybe if I cook enough, I wonder if they would sign me on to make my own spice.
Totally. They totally would. Who wouldn't want your own? I would want Breezy spice for the barbecue meat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That sounded so weird.
It did, but
it's fine.
It's what good. It is.
It's what it is. I had to come up with something good. A good name, too.
Yeah. What are you going to call it? Are you going to create your own periodic table, like initials or abbreviation?
I could. I don't know. Well, I made my own barbecue sauce a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And I asked my friends, I was like, what should I name it? And my one friend, Chelsea, wrote back, and my dog's name is Mate. So she was like, name it Meat Mate.
Yeah.
So I did. And then and then everyone ate it. So then I had to make another batch, but I changed it up a little bit. And now they're like, oh, this is better than the first one. So now I'm like, do I just rename this one Meat Mate, or do I come up with something else?
Or you do it squared, start getting like mathematical or something, you know?
Yeah. I suck at math, but I do know what squared means.
Yeah, you just put a little like 2 up at the top.
M2.
Yes.
That's actually pretty good. I'm going to write that down. M2. Okay, M squared.
Yeah, or like that. Yeah, M squared. You could have the original Meat Mate, M squared, you know.
Yeah.
And beyond that, that's all I got.
That's okay. That helped. I needed that.
A little inspo to get your mind thinking a little differently, I guess.
Yeah. That's
exciting.
I know.
I still haven't had your cooking with quarantine, and I'm very much looking forward to trying your barbecue one day, hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon, yeah. You'll have to tell me what you want. Full course meal.
Oh, man. You decide. I eat all the meat.
You eat all the meat. And all the veggies?
I don't eat corn.
Oh, I don't either. It's fine. Corn's bad.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Corn upsets my tummy. But yeah. All the other vegetables, I'm good. Anything. Okay. I love cornbread. I love biscuits. I love collard greens, green beans, you know, good. All the southern like barbecue type of.
I make cauliflower mac and cheese.
Yes.
And I do it on the smoker. Yeah.
I want that, please.
Okay. And I also make really bomb asparagus.
I love asparagus. Done. And then you pick the meat, whatever you feel like trying to cook.
Okay.
I'm hungry now. I just freaking ate. Now I'm like, now I want all the food.
It'll do it to you. So yeah.
But yeah, I've not too much change here in my life updates. I did, like you were saying, how the weekend was really nice here in California. They allowed the beaches to open up again. And that was music. That was music to my ears, though. The beach is my place, my happy place, my sad place, my everything place where I can just go to get away, clear my head, or, you know, scream into the ocean, or just relax, or whatever it is. So I spent 3 days at the beach.
That's nice.
Friday, I went for a bike ride to the beach. Saturday, I went and I saw the bioluminescence.
Oh, yeah.
this is, if people don't know what this is, it's I think an algae phytoplankton kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and it glows neon colors, neon blue, neon purple in at night in the ocean. And I don't, has that ever happened here before, Breezy?
I
In
don't think
LA,
it's
do you
happened.
remember that? Like,
No, I don't
since,
think it's happened here. The first time I actually heard about it, I actually bought it was a Christmas gift, and I got it for my nephew as like a nightlight because you can shake it. It was like a little dinosaur, and like you put the little whatever organisms in there, and then you would shake it, and then it would illuminate blue. But it didn't really work that well because like you have to like feed it with sunlight, and it's like, and then you had to like feed it with other stuff, which is like obviously like plankton or whatever. But I don't think it's ever happened out here before, or if it has, I just haven't heard about it. So
yeah, I thought this is, I mean, I've heard of the red tide, which is sort of similar, I think, to what this is, that happens in
yeah,
other places in the world. And and at night to see it glow like that when the
that
waves
would be cool.
crash, it's definitely cool to see and
Yeah,
experience. And
I gotta go catch it before it leaves. Has it left yet?
not yet. It doesn't really say. I haven't heard
Yeah,
any reports that it's over. It definitely wasn't. Well, I went over by where I live, and I think in different
yeah,
parts of the bay over here and down in
mm-hmm,
Orange County, it's
yeah,
clearer and it looks a little bit different, but
yeah.
you could still see it. So I
I
did
know.
that, and
I'll have to hit up Malibu or something. It's
mhm,
close.
yeah. But that's it. What were you going to ask me before? Or you
I
were going
don't
to say
remember.
something about the water, the ocean, the bike?
I don't remember. Oh, California's supposed to open up by July 4th. That's what I
That's
heard.
exciting.
I know.
That
Very
means
exciting.
maybe for the 4th of July, I can come have barbecue.
Yeah, because we're probably gonna have a big party. We have a lot of birthdays we have to celebrate, and so we're gonna have a
Whose
big party.
birthdays?
Well, it was my older nephew's birthday, mine and my dad's,
Oh,
my
you mean
youngest
previous.
nephew. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. So we're combining all of them, all quarantine birthdays,
I like it.
all in one. But I was super excited because that means my road trip can happen
Right.
because
Right. I was
we
going to
booked.
say, when do you plan to do that?
Well, we now changed the plans again, but it's like set in stone this time because we
Okay.
actually booked stuff. So like we're gonna hit up we're going back, we're gonna go up to Montana, which I originally wanted to do. We're hitting up like Zion National Park, we're gonna go to Salt Lake City, Jackson Hole, Idaho, Bozeman, down to
That's awesome.
Tahoe. So it's gonna be sick. And we're gonna do that in September.
September. Awesome.
Yep.
That's the perfect time of year.
I think so. Although it's supposed to be really hot in Zion. I don't do well with the sun. We all know that.
Yeah.
But
How's your tan?
it's not really there much anymore.
Oh,
Spent 4 days inside, disappeared. I gotta go back out.
go back out.
Gotta go back out.
Oh, man. This is the part of the podcast where we let you, yes, you, hockey fans, take the mic and tell your story of interacting with an NHL player, past or present.
My name is Michael Thomas, and this is my hockey fan story. It's about Luc Robitaille. When I was a kid, and I've been raised in LA my entire life, despite the fact that I am a very hardcore, diehard Flyers fan and have been for a very long time. It originated with being a Kings fan and being absolutely 100% fan crazed over Robitaille. He was my idol. And I used to go to their practices out here in Van Nuys at the Isoplex all the time when I was a kid. And actually got to meet him on my 11th birthday. And he was the coolest, the nicest guy in the world. Absolutely no ego whatsoever. He actually went out of his way because it was my birthday. I think my mom had mentioned that to him while I was meeting him. He actually went all the way back down the hall to the locker room to grab me a puck and signed it right in front of me and gave it to me. And I was 11 years old. And had it not been for that, I was just getting into hockey at the time. I just started playing. Had it not been for that, I don't think I would have had that fire ignited in me to continue to play and just be an overall hockey fan in general, but also a player as well. So, and I've been playing ever since. So that was my story. Coolest guy in the world. And I will say I'm very happy that you were learning to play hockey now. We need more hockey players in the world, especially females. So thank you very much.
Thanks for sharing your story on the House of Hockey podcast. We'd love to hear your story if you have one of interacting with an NHL player, past or present. Just call our phone number, 323-438-2648. Tell us your name, tell us the NHL player's name and the team they play for, and then tell your story in 5 minutes or less. And you just might hear it on an upcoming episode of the podcast. And don't forget, guys, it is your last chance to get 30% off at coolhockey.com. That is the place to go for all of you hockey jersey lovers. And if you're looking to buy a new jersey or get a gift for somebody, you have from now until June 1st. If you purchase any jersey through our specific link, which is coolhockey.com/THPN, that stands for the Hockey Podcast Network, THPN, you will get 30% off, which is about $75 off of a jersey, which, as we know, jerseys are expensive, and that is a great deal. So when you check out, just make sure you use our promo code THPN. And then there's a second part of this, right? You can even be entered to win a gift card, right, Breezy?
Yeah, you can win a $175 gift card just by purchasing a jersey through our link using our code up until June 1st. And that's pretty much it. I mean, you can send us a DM or tweet us on Twitter and say, you know, what jersey you just ordered, just so we can have fun and see what it is. And we'll tie your name with your order, and you'll be automatically entered in to win a $175 gift card. So all you got to do is go to coolhockey.com/THPN and use the promo code THPN and pick yourself up a jersey, and hopefully you can win a gift card.
All right. Well, I think we should get into the interview with Lyndsey. What do you think?
I think so. I'm really excited for everyone to hear this one.
Same. Enjoy.
We've got a silver medalist Olympian in the house today. She competed in the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, playing for Team USA. Lyndsey Fry, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're super stoked to have you.
It's awesome.
So you grew up in Arizona?
I did. Chandler, Arizona. It's my hometown.
So how'd you get into hockey? Arizona's kind of a little bit of a dry state for ice, right?
Yeah, definitely not the hotbed for ice hockey here in Arizona. I think a lot of it had to do with timing. You know, when I was 4, I think, I fell in love with the Mighty Ducks movies. And my dad was actually commuting back and forth to Southern California at the time. We had an apartment, I think it's San Dimas. And so it was awesome. We would come with him a lot of the time. And I had just, you know, discovered these movies, fell in love with them, fell in love with hockey. They got me the little like Fisher-Price plastic skates that would strap onto my shoes, and I would just skate on the driveway with those for hours. And eventually I got to actually go to some Mighty Ducks games, which was awesome since we were commuting back and forth. So that piece of timing was really beneficial. When he was kind of done doing the work he was doing there and we were back in Arizona full time, the Arizona Coyotes came to town, or the Phoenix Coyotes at the time came in 1996 and had their inaugural season. And after that, they started building more rinks in the Phoenix area, and one of them happened to be in Chandler. So it was like 7 minutes away from my house. But before that got built, my parents put a stick in my hands and I started as a roller hockey player, as a lot of kids my age here in Arizona who played did. And started at roller once the rink was open in Chandler, the ice rink. I went, tried it out. It was funny. My parents tried to get me to try figure skates first, not necessarily because they wanted me to be a figure skater, but they just felt like it would be easier to stand on the flatter blade. And I was mortified as this 5-6-year-old. I was like, no, I'm a hockey player. I'm going to wear the hockey skates. Thank you. And I've never worn a pair of figure skates to this day. And yeah, so I started playing ice hockey there, switched over from roller. But at the time, I mean, when I was born, you guys, in Arizona, there were less than 20 girls in the entire state between the ages of 6 and 18 playing hockey. It was very small. Now, that number was up to like 30 or 40 by the time I started playing when I was 6, but it was very small in a very large state. So I had really no opportunities to play with other girls. So I played with the boys, and fortunately, I was the kind of kid who just loved it. I wanted to be a hockey player, and I just identified as a hockey player. It didn't bother me that I was a girl, they were boys. I love the game. I love the sport. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And it's kind of a unique story for sure.
I picture you like from the Mighty Ducks movie. What was the girl's name? The girl who played on the team.
Oh, there are a couple, but
Cat?
Well, Cat was one of them, right?
Cat. There was Julie the Cat Gaffney. There was Connie.
That's right.
In the very first one, there was like the brother-sister duo.
The figure skaters.
He was the figure skater, yeah. And D2 was like, that was my movie. The Team USA one, that was it for me.
I just picture you really like badass, like the girls in the movie, like with the boys, like not really caring. It's not a big deal. It's just hockey.
Yep, exactly. Well, and when I was playing, the rules hadn't switched over yet for USA Hockey. Nowadays, you have to be a Bantam before you can start checking. So you have to be 13. When I was playing, you could start checking at Pee Wee. So I was 11, and I've been basically 5'8" since I was 11 years old. So I was like a foot taller than all the boys. So I was like the big hitter on my team. And I loved it. I mean, it was just totally the kid I was. I wasn't like a bruiser or anything, but I like loved being able to just hold my own and toss the boys around a little bit. And it was a lot of fun.
I feel like that's a really big misconception with women's hockey in general, that there's not a lot of hits and not a lot of big hits, and there's no checking and there's no fighting. And I have seen it with my own eyes that that's not the case, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. So I'll just kind of like keep walking through the journey a little bit because it's relevant.
Sure.
So when I had to switch over to girls hockey, a lot of it had to do with the recruiting aspect. So I was 14 at the time, 13 or 14. I was a second year Bantam, just about to go into high school. And we started realizing that if I wanted to play women's college hockey someday, there was no way I was going to get recruited playing on a boys team in Chandler. So I needed to find a girls hockey option. I probably could have played a couple years of midget. I mean, I was big and strong enough to be able to hold my own, but it really came down to the recruiting factor. But when we made that decision, I was super reluctant. I did not want to switch to girls hockey. One, because like I was captain of my boys team. I had played with those guys since we were 9 years old. Like I loved them. They were family. So there was that piece of it. But the checking aspect was huge for me because I didn't really have a ton of exposure to girls hockey yet. We had a couple like one-off teams here in Arizona, but a lot of beginner girls played on the team. We would play against weaker teams. And so it really was like a non-physical version of girls hockey that I had been exposed to. And so I was devastated. Like I remember so vividly like crying in my shower because I had to switch to girls hockey. And but I started playing for a team in Colorado called the Colorado Select, which was great. There was another girl here in town who she was one of my best friends here locally, and we would fly back and forth to Colorado together like twice a month on the weekends to practice with our team or play with our team. And then we would practice with boys teams. I practiced with my younger brother's team here, and we did that all throughout high school.
So you're what, like 13 to 17 flying alone on weekends to go play hockey?
Well, so the first 2 years, so when I was like 14, 15, we would go together and we would always switch off like which parent would take us. So, but then from there, I'll get to it eventually, but I ended up switching to online school so I could go there more frequently. And I would stay in Colorado. By then I had made enough friends. So like junior and senior year, I would stay in Colorado for a week and a half at a time, 2 weeks, and then come home and just kind of like alternate a week there, a week back.
You're like living the dream as a high schooler, like away from home.
Yeah.
You get to like go play hockey, do school, have friends, and like not have to be with your parents. That's
well, see, and the thing is, like, I'm very close with my family, and so one of the reasons we chose to do Colorado versus like me just shipping off to a prep school in Boston was it was a really nice balance. Like, I got what I wanted to get out of hockey. I got the recruiting opportunities that we were looking for, but I also like wasn't fully away from home. It was kind of like I got to dip my toe in the water of being away from home, but when I needed mom and dad, I could always come home. So that worked out really well. But as far as like the physicality of it, I really struggled with the transition. Like when I first started playing girls hockey, I remember like I was afraid to touch anyone. I went from being this like thumper on my boys team to thinking like, I'm not allowed to hit anyone. I'm a lot bigger. I'm a lot stronger than a lot of these girls I'm playing against. Like I can't body up on them. And it took my coach, like my high school coach, starting to get on me and be like, you need to start being more physical. And in my mind, I'm like, I can't. I'll get penalties constantly. So I started to kind of learn how to use my body and be physical, but in the way that was appropriate for women's hockey. And then once I got to college, especially at the D1 level, like all those women are so strong on their skates that kind of to your point, when you watch the national team, like you can throw a full blown hit in the corner and you're not going to get called for it because nobody's going to fall. So it's really just eliminating the open ice hitting, which is, you know, for a lot of reasons with the concussion stuff, is leaving the men's side of the game as well. So it's shifting more to that speed, along the boards physicality, and kind of getting away from the fighting and the open ice hits.
Yeah.
Crazy. Great. Go ahead, Rachel. Sorry to cut you off.
That's okay. No, yeah, that's an interesting perspective on hearing that from you. We don't really hear that from, you know, you would never have that conversation with a man playing, you know, like, I don't want to hit too hard. Like, that's just such an interesting perspective to share. So tell us a little bit more about the journey then so you played at Harvard, right? You got recruited, you played there. Tell us a little bit about that experience and then how you ended up with the Olympic team. Yeah.
So that is a tumultuous tale.
Oh boy. Lay it on us.
Yeah. So I, when I first got to Harvard, you know, I had played in 2009 and 2010 on the under 18 national team. So I'd already had 2 years of Team USA under my belt. But I hate admitting this, but like, I was the kid who had a lot of talent. I was a big fish in a small pond here out west. And when I like went into college, I was, I guess cocky is really the only word that I could use. But it wasn't like arrogant. It was just, it was like, well, my talent has gotten me here. So why do I need to like go above and beyond and put in any extra hard work? And I was so bad about like just comparing myself to other people to just be enough. Like I have this vivid memory. I hate telling this story, but I have this vivid memory of leading into college. We got emailed, you know, here's your off-ice workout plan. This is what we expect when you get here. We're going to have off-ice testing in the first week or two when you get to school. And I was just like super inconsistent in general about working out away from the rink. And I get this plan and I'm like kind of doing it, but not really. Like I especially wasn't doing any of the running stuff because I hated it because I wasn't good at it. And I remember literally looking at like Facebook pictures of all of the freshmen that were coming in with me. And like by looking at their pictures, deciding like, oh, well, I'm stronger than her. I think I'm faster than her. Oh, I look like I could be in better shape than her. Like, it was awful. And so I came in, like, totally out of shape, but thought, like, oh, well, I'm this stud from the West. Like, I'll be a first-line player, no problem. It's like my conditioning's not stopped me up to this point. It'll be fine. And I get there, and all of a sudden it's like I think one of the things about being from out West and not seeing college hockey is, like, your mindset is so narrow. Like, I had no idea how many talented female hockey players were out there. So I show up and I'm like, okay, these girls are bigger, they're older, they're stronger, faster. Like, what did I do? And we get through testing. The first couple days were like all strength testing, which I did fine because I was naturally pretty strong. And then we get to the conditioning test. I get through, we had to do 10 reps of this like shuttle test. I get through the first rep barely under the time. And then the second rep, I like missed the time. So I had failed after rep number 2. And instead of like just grinding it out and continuing to run, which is what we were expected to do, I like collapsed to the floor and basically like I just quit. I was like, I can't do this. So not only did I have like a really challenging time adjusting to the hockey aspect, but I also went from being in online school for 2 years where I could set my own due dates. I could like go to school in my underwear if I wanted. I had full control. And now all of a sudden I'm at Harvard and it's like really rigorous academics. You show up at class at a certain time. Your homework is due at a certain time. So my transition to college was extremely challenging. And probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me because it was a total humbling slap in the face. I had been very fortunate to have school and hockey always come easily to me, but then all of a sudden it pushed me so far out of my comfort zone my freshman year. So that was challenging. And just as I started to kind of acclimate, my 2 days before Christmas, my freshman year, my best friend who I played with in Colorado got killed in a car accident. So that was awful. And like that took everything from bad to worse. And I was all over the place. I was also supposed to be leaving for my first senior national team camp the day after Christmas. So it was like Liz passes away. I didn't want to go. I was like, why am I going to go? I'm going to stay there for 3 days and then I'm going to fly to Denver for a funeral. Like I was devastated. I was 18 years old. I didn't nothing like that had ever happened to me in my life. But my parents and my coach encouraged me. Like, this was my first time at a senior national team camp. Like, I was going to be out there with Angela Ruggiero and like all these big names, like Jenny Potter was at that camp, like all these big names in women's hockey. That was like my first crack at it. So I ended up going. It's funny, like since then my parents and my coach have kind of been like, maybe that wasn't the right choice. Cause I was so like not there. But yeah, so that was really challenging. And the rest of my freshman year was just kind of a wash. I was angry. I was sad. I was frustrated. I didn't know how to process all these emotions. And there were a lot of times that I wanted to quit. And the crazy thing is that was like 2011. That's 3 years before my Olympics. Like it was a pretty short window. So I ended up like finding a way to kind of take her memory, use it as fuel, and kind of create more of a positive mindset around it. And had a fairly good sophomore year, but I still wasn't really I wasn't there yet in the sense that I wasn't doing everything that I could off the ice to be truly an elite athlete. I didn't get invited to any national team stuff that year. So I went to that camp in December for the national team, and I didn't get invited back the entire 2011, 2012 season. So at the end of my sophomore year, that's kind of when I had my aha moment. So I remember meeting with Coach Stone, who was my coach at Harvard and also at the time was projected to be the Olympic coach. And we had our end of the year meeting my sophomore year. So that would have been like April of 2012. And I always bring up the timeline because to me, it's crazy. I consider myself so lucky. Like, people train 10 years with everything they've got and still don't make an Olympic team. Right. And I basically had less than a 2-year window to get myself going.
And a big life trauma and a big life adjustment aside from the loss of your friend, but the adjustment to this regular schedule and life and all this other stuff. Yeah. That's incredible.
For sure. So my aha moment came when I was talking to my coach, and she sat me down. We talked a little bit about the season, and she finally goes, she's like, "Lyndsey, do you want this?" And I was like, well, yeah, of course I want this. You know, in my head, I'm like, everybody, like every women's hockey player wants this.
You're like, I'm not playing if I don't want it.
Right, right. And she was like, but she looked at me and she's like, no, do you want this? And I thought about it for a second and I was like, Coach, do you think I even have a chance? And she's like very direct. So she like kind of took a second. She paused and she goes, first 3 lines, probably not, but that 4th line is open for the taking. And I was like, okay. And that was kind of like, that's when it clicked. I'm like, all right, I have the Olympic coach telling me that I legitimately have a chance of being on that team if I don't give it everything that I have in the next like 20 months or 22 months, whatever it was. I was like, I will regret this forever. Right. And so that was when it just totally clicked, and I just became so hyper focused. I completely changed the way I trained. I changed the way I ate. I like completely did a 180 and locked in. And to the chagrin of some of my friends at the time, I mean, I never went out because I didn't want to put myself in a position to go backwards. So I definitely lost a little of like the social time, but totally worth it. And I worked my butt off and completely changed everything I did, and it ultimately ended up paying off. So,
all right. So you made the team, obviously. Yeah. And then how was it? Kind of talk us through like how making the team was, like how that, like everything that you've done to get up to that point. You made the team. How are those emotions? And then how was it going through the Olympics, the whole process of that?
Yeah. So what a lot of people don't realize is, the way the national team works is in the non-Olympic years, you meet up for a camp in August, you meet up for a camp in December, and then there's the World Championships in April. And then there's a few other tournaments throughout here and there, like the Four Nations Cup, but those are kind of the big 3 events. And you have to constantly be re-invited back. So like you could have played on a World Championship team in 2012 and not get invited to camp the following August. So it's very dynamic, and the team is like constantly changing. So your spot is never safe. So you have to be like extremely consistent. So I had made it onto the 2013 World Championship team in April of 2013, which was huge, right? Like that's like the last major tournament before the Olympics. But even still, everybody on that roster had to try out for the Olympic team. So the tryouts for the Olympics were in June of 2013. And that was cool because we did it in Lake Placid on the 1980 rink, which was awesome.
Wow.
And there were 40 women there trying out. And then the way it works is it's not like you just make it through tryouts and you make the team. I mean, it's very much like Miracle. So 25 of us made it through. We had to have our roster down to 21 by January 1st. And we all did what was called centralization. So we ended up moving to Boston, which was nice for me because all my friends were already there. We ended up moving to Boston. Everybody withdrew from school for the year if they were still in college. And we trained together from August basically through February. But they're like, I mean, imagine, right? Like practice is where you're supposed to go and just be free, make mistakes, whatever. And it was like a month after month after month tryout. And you're trying to build these relationships with your teammates, but you're also like a little hesitant because that same person could take your spot. And it was kind of a stressful time. But ended up making it through. We found out, so we had like one of our last series games against Canada right before we were going home for Christmas break. And we knew like the team had to be finalized. We still had 2 cuts to make at that point. We knew the team had to be finalized by January 1st because that's when it was getting announced publicly. And we finished that game in North Dakota right before Christmas break. And we found out after the game who the final roster was going to be or what the final roster was going to be. And I immediately called my brother and I was like, Wes, I made the team. Don't tell mom and dad. And he's like, what? He's like 17 at the time. He's like, what do you mean don't tell mom and dad? I'm like, just hold on. So in my family, we do skits at Christmas Eve at my grandparents'. Like, we've been doing it since before I was born. It's been this like long lasting tradition, and you can do a poem, you can do a song, you can do a dance, like you just have to perform. So I told my brother, I was like, let's like tell them via this
skit. Great.
And, so I go home for break. I tell my parents, I was like, hey, I really thought they were going to announce it, but they want to wait and watch. We had one more game against Canada right after Christmas. I was like, they want to watch that last game to really figure out like who the final people are going to be. So for the whole week, my poor parents, they're just like, so, like, what are you thinking? You think, like, what are they looking for? What, like, they're just speculating because they've already bought tickets. They've booked their rooms. They've done, you know, like financially, it was a really big stress. And I'm just lying. I'm like, I don't know. I think they want to look at some defense maybe. Like, I was just totally lying. But anyway, so we did our skit, and my brother, we came out. My brother was dressed as Santa, and I was like, oh, Santa, do you have a gift for me? And he's like, yeah. He gives me this poster, and I look at it, and then I look at the front, and I go, this says to Team Fry. That's all of them. And I go, can I give it to them? And he's like, yeah. And I reached over and I started playing the like, dun, 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 dun. And I turned it around, and it had the Olympic rings and said, we did it. And it's so funny. The video is great.
That's awesome.
My mom like pans over. My mom's like, how do you know that? My grandma's in the background like, it was awesome. So that was, I think, like that was probably one of the most special things ever, just because,
yeah.
I mean, I'm a little girl from the desert. Like, I was not supposed to make that team, and without them, there's no way I would have ever been able to do that. So fast forwarding to the Olympics itself, I mean, gosh, there's a million things that we could dive into, but yeah, Sochi was an interesting place. I loved it as an Arizona girl. It was like 65 and sunny every day in February. There were like palm trees. It was nuts, like not what you would think of with Russia.
Oh, wow.
Like where we were, it was called the Coastal Village. So we were right on the Black Sea. And it was like really, really nice climate. It was great. We were walking distance to the venues, which was great because I didn't realize this, but like when they were in Vancouver, it was a 40-minute bus ride to the rink and back. Oh. And every single time it was like, you get on the bus, they have to check your bags, they have to sweep the bus, like all this stuff. We literally would just like to and from the rink. It was great. But yeah, the landscape was really cool because like I said, it was like really tropical-y.
Yeah.
And then you like turn, and in the distance there's these big, beautiful white mountains where obviously all like the skiing events and things like that were going on. So that was really cool. My parents actually stayed on a cruise ship because Sochi, like the Olympics, those Olympics are known for being like finished at the last minute. It's like by far the most expensive Olympics ever because they built it purely from the ground up. Like you could still, everything was really nice for us, but like you could still smell the glue. There were still some like screws in the street. Like it was clear they finished like right before. But all of our parents ended up staying on this parked cruise ship that came in from like Spain because they didn't know if hotels were going to be built. So it was nuts. So anyway, yeah, the experience itself was incredible. And like you guys can ask me any specific questions, but I think one of the biggest things, or the memories that I always come back to, really revolve around my family. I had my entire family there. My best friend, who I played with in Colorado, that I would commute with from Arizona, she came. My best friend's parents, my grandparents came. Like it was awesome. They all were there. And I remember like the first time we went out for practice. So the first time we were on the ice was so special because for two reasons. One, we're like getting ready to go out on the ice. And my brother, who's like, you know, this cool 17, 18-year-old kid, is like leaning over like a little kid looking down the tunnel, like waiting for me to come out. And as I start to come out, I can like tell that he's kind of crying. He like waves. He's like, Lyndsey, and his voice kind of cracked. Like it was so sweet. I'll never forget it. And so they were there for our first practice, and like I go out, and then seeing the Olympic rings on the boards for the first time, that was for me like, holy crap. Like, I am this little kid from Arizona in Sochi, Russia, getting ready to play in the Olympic Games. Like, that for me, like, I just got chills thinking about it. Like, it wasn't real until that moment. Like, it was wild. But yeah, so as far as like the games and everything, we can dive into that. But obviously, we didn't get the outcome we wanted. But I think to kind of wrap up the whole story, I know I'm talking a lot, but it was obviously heartbreaking. Like, we were up 2-0, 2 minutes left in the game. They tied it, and then we lost in overtime. Like, absolutely crushing. But for me, a lot of people would ask me, like, are you going to do another one? And I always take them back to this moment. Like, as soon as I had the medal put around my neck, I knew exactly where my family was sitting. And I looked up at them, and I just, like, had this surreal moment. It was, like, out of a movie where I just started having these, like, flashes of all the people in my life from the time I was this, 4-year-old strapping on these Fisher-Price skates to the time that I was in Colorado to the time I was in college. Like, I thought about just all the different people who had helped me get to that moment. And that's when I realized, like, that's what I want to do. I want to go and help other people reach their dreams and have their moment. And it's really what's kind of driven everything that I'm doing today in the hockey world, and just in kind of the mentorship and coaching world.
Wow, that's such an incredible story. I don't even know where to go from after that. I mean, it's like you just said it so beautifully about your whole experience there. And I think it's a gift. It really is a gift when you can have those moments of clarity when you are like, okay, this is what I want to do next. And you not even like the Olympics aspect of wanting to play in another Olympics, but did you want to never playing like professionally? Was that ever something that crossed your mind? I know the women's like professional hockey has, seen its ebbs and flows with different organizations and stuff like that, but that was never something that had even crossed your mind.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So where the state of women's hockey was, I would say most of while I was in college was the CWHL. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I know it eventually got to a little bit better place, but at the time, like, that's what women's professional hockey was. And Hillary Knight was fundraising to be able to go on like road trips. I mean, that was, you think about where we were then to where we are now. Right. So like that world just was never.
Yeah, that's not very appealing. I mean, that's like, geez, like just to get on the road after you've had these incredible experiences and you're working your ass off to play on the ice and do your best, and then like have to do that extra. Yeah, I get that.
Right. So that's kind of where it was at. So Olympics were February. I came back home. This would have been 2014. I had my senior year to go back and finish up at Harvard. I ended up training over the summer at Harvard, and during that time I was doing squats, and it wasn't the squats that did it. I think it's just like what aggravated it, but all of a sudden like my hip just was like shot, and I had to go find out I had a torn labrum and also had impingement. And so I was like, right before my senior year, I had to figure out, okay, am I going to like get surgery and wait another year to graduate, or am I going to play through this and get surgery at the end? And that year, like, our team it's the best team Harvard hockey has had in a very long time. And still to this day, like, we were the national runner-ups. It was incredible. And so I was like, I'm not missing out on this year. So I ended up getting a couple cortisone shots and doing that whole bit and powered through. And at the end, I got my surgery and everything went really well. But even then, like, training for an Olympics is something that your heart has to be 100% in. Like, it is so mentally, emotionally, physically taxing. So I actually, like, while I was hurt, I went to a winter camp And I went because I needed to know if I was like mentally where I was at. Like if I wanted to recover from this injury and like push through and, you know, spend another 3 years of my life training for another one, which, you know, I was a fourth line player. Like I had no idea if I was actually even going to make it onto another team or not. But I went to camp, I landed in Minnesota, and like the second I stepped off the plane, I was like, nope, like I know what I want, and it's not this. Like I want to finish out my senior year, have a great season, enjoy my last year of college, and then I want to go home and I want to like make a difference. I did still have to finish camp, which was
yeah, I was gonna say
that was almost like more mentally challenging, knowing that I didn't fully want to be there. But yeah, so. But I don't know, it's weird because even though I didn't want to be there, there was also some peace with it because it was like I knew deep down kind of what I wanted. So, yeah, so, you know, it had a little bit to do with everything. There was the emotional component. There was the physical aspect, like my hip still, I worked through it. I'll probably need a replacement someday, but it still does bug me every once in a while. And yeah, I knew it was the right decision for me to pursue other things. I did end up playing later on, I rediscovered roller hockey. And oddly enough, I didn't even know this rink existed, but there's a rink in Arizona, and the head coach of the women's national team for roller hockey is here. And so I just like started playing on a whim. He's like, you should come to Italy with us. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I played on 2 national teams for roller hockey, which was like so fun.
So cool.
I might still try to play on a few more. I don't know. They're super fun. It's a lot more laid back, but still like the competition's really good. So I've found other outlets to compete.
That's funny. So I have to ask, what do you do with your medal? Where do you keep? Do you still wear it? Do you store it somewhere? Do your parents have it?
It is under my bedside table in the box that we were given when we got it. Very
nice.
Unexciting. Yeah, I don't know. The thing is like you often, I don't know, like one, I would feel uncomfortable with it on a like display case. Like, I don't know. I like to keep it a little more hidden, as I think most of us do. But you also do like have to pull it out a lot because, you know, when you're going to events and stuff and, or in my case, like I'm very involved in the hockey community here. So there's a lot of people who, you kind of, I don't know, you kind of forget like how impactful it really is. And I actually have this very vivid memory, like right after I got back from the Olympics, I did my grandma's like women's group. I went and
like bridge club.
Basically, it was like bridge/garden club. I don't know. But I ended up going and doing a little talk there. And that was like really kind of one of the first events that I had like brought my medal to because it was very shortly after I got home. And I remember this like 80-something-year-old woman was like, she asked me if she could hold it. And I was like, yeah, of course. And she held it and she started crying. And she's like, never in my life did I think I would actually get to hold one of these or see one of these. And that I'm like bawling on the inside. And in my head, like that for me was like, all right, anyone who ever wants to touch this thing gets to touch it. So it's actually like fairly beaten up. I need to get it like scuffed out a little bit because a lot of hands have touched it. There was one time where I was leaving at a elementary school. I looked down, I had like a big blue crayon mark across it. But, and it's not like because I don't, you know, cherish and value it. I do, but it's just like when I saw what it meant to that woman to be able to hold it, I was like, if this can inspire one person or one kid, then like by all means, let it fly. Like,
yeah,
I'm really good with that.
For real. Jeez.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now and that inspiration? And I see you've got some small fry stuff behind you. Tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing. And then we'll circle back to more of the like pro world?
Yeah, I realized I didn't really dive into that question too much.
No. Talk about what you're doing and how like all of the activities in the community, because you were already talking about that. So tell us about that and tell us about what you're doing now.
Yeah, so while I was still in college, the director of amateur hockey development for the Arizona Coyotes, he's really the guy responsible for all, youth hockey initiatives that the pro team does. He's like 6 years older than me, but we grew up playing in the same rink in Chandler, and his dad was actually my brother's coach for a little bit growing up. So we had like kind of known each other, not like super close friends, but knew each other well enough. And he reached out to me while I was still in college, kind of going through this Olympic tryout journey. And he asked me, when I was home, if I would be willing to come out and just like do some stuff in the community, maybe do like a little girls' street hockey clinic, whatever. So it started very small with me getting involved. And then when I was done with college, we started talking. I started doing some one-off clinics, like totally just contracted. And we just kind of did what we could with the girls that we had. Well, what was interesting is we were doing a lot to really invest. At that time, not me. He was doing a lot to really allocate, his budget to try to grow girls hockey. And we were seeing that girls hockey was growing exponentially. Like we were number one in percent growth of all the states for like 5 years straight, because it was just growing so rapidly. And yet for some reason, the number of girls teams weren't increasing. And what's kind of happened in Arizona over the last, like pretty much my lifetime, is that there's been like 7 iterations of a girls association. And it's like they get up, they get running, you have some really passionate parents involved, it goes, and then people burn out, and another passionate parent comes and rebrands everything, and then they run it. And it's kind of just been like that for so many years. So we started really thinking 2 things. One, how do we continue to develop the ecosystem for girls hockey? How do we keep getting girls in at the very, very base level? Because what was happening with some of those other programs is they were just kind of going with what we call the catch model. So they had teams in like the Bantam and older age groups that basically were just there to serve the purpose of, for the girls that were already playing in boys hockey, we'll be here for you when you don't want to check anymore. Like there really wasn't any girls specific development at the bottom. It was just kind of like, oh, well, I hope the girls play, and we'll just kind of like bring them all together at the end of their youth hockey. So we're like, no, let's really try to do something to grow the base. Well, the other cool thing about the timing of that was that we got the Industry Growth Fund, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with. I think it started in like 2016 or 2017, but basically the NHL and the NHL PA realized that numbers were starting to plateau a little bit in fandom, and they needed to do more in the community to really grow at the grassroots level. So they poured a bunch of money in, and it got distributed out to all the NHL clubs based on what they applied for. Well, we applied for, or Matt, I should say, applied for a girls hockey grant. So we got it, and he said, I want to bring you on to, like, I was brought on part-time to run this small fries program, as you can see by all of our stuff. So we piloted it in 2017. It went pretty well. And then we pivoted some things, and then went like all out, marketed it like crazy in 2018. We had like 50 girls come out for an entire summer. We had an all-female staff, which is like, that's unheard of in a lot of places, but like to be able to do it in Arizona, I think.
And in hockey, and the sport of hockey of all, that says a lot about the program.
Right. We had a lot of women who had come back to the state who played that wanted to get involved. So it was great. We had a lot of success there. So after that, we were like, okay, now we're like, we figured out the funnel. We figured out how to get them in. So how do we create a pathway for them? How do we create something where they can start in girls hockey if they want to, and end in girls hockey if they want to? And we knew that there were enough girls to build out like a top to bottom girls association. And we kind of figured like, let's go for it. And we sort of went into it with the mindset of, if we build it, they'll come. Like we knew the numbers were there. We built it. We worked together with the other girls associations. One of them had one team, the other had two. Like, it was very small. And we said, look, like, we are going to put all of the resources that we can into this. We've got the money, we've got the NHL club, we've got the brand, we've got all of it. And we expected it to be this like battle to like get them to buy in, and it actually worked out really well. Like, they were both of the leaders of those two were looking to get out, and so we kind of absorbed everything overnight, and we took the state from having 3 teams to 9 in one season, and we're going to expand to 12 next year. So we're super excited, and I got brought on full time with the team about 2 years ago to kind of help with that effort, and also just serve as like a female hockey ambassador for the team, which I shouldn't say it so nonchalantly. We were the first team to have a full-time female hockey ambassador. Since then, there have now been 4 or 5 of us hired around the league. So Haley Skarupa's with the Capitals, Kessel's with the Rangers, Michelle Amadon is with the Avalanche. So that's been really cool to kind of see how that's evolved. And then I also from there got asked to be on the inaugural NHL Female Hockey Advisory Committee. So I'm on a committee with like 12 other women, Olympians on both sides of the border. And it's just been a really awesome journey.
That's really cool. Have you noticed like hockey growing in the state of Arizona since Austin Matthews has kind of shifted upward and obviously made the big leagues?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I don't necessarily know. It did shoot up a little bit, but I think overall, like, it's been growing pretty rapidly before that. But we definitely saw a little bit of a spike. I think you're seeing a lot more kids. It's hard to quantify it, but like, you definitely see more kids on both the girls and the boys side more inspired, I think, because of it, and more parents like believing like, holy crap, my kid could actually do something with this. Because on the girls side, like, there was me, we had another woman who played a year in the NWHL, who's from here, and then obviously on the boys side with Austin, and we're seeing more and more on the boys and men's side really make some big strides in the game. So I think more parents are just, we always remind them, like, now we have to say at Learn to Play, like, your kid isn't here to become the next Austin Matthews. Your kid is here to learn how to skate and have fun and love the game. So now we have to kind of like bring parents down a little bit. But I think overall it's really helped people and parents and kids like understand that there's no reason why you can't have the dream if you're from Arizona. And actually, that reminds me, there's an aspect that I haven't talked about yet, if I could.
Yeah, do it.
For it.
So in addition to like everything that I do here locally with the Coyotes, I also started up my own hockey camp business. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because when I got home, this would have been 2015. This is before Small Fries, before Kachinas, like all of that. Kachinas is the name of our girls association. Before any of that, I came home, and it's funny because my mindset initially was like, I wanted to give back, I wanted to help, but like, as far as a profession was concerned, I didn't want hockey to be my profession. And it was because my senior year, like, all my friends at school, like, are going and getting Harvard jobs. Like, they're going to Goldman Sachs, and they're going to med school, and they're like all this stuff. And so I'm like,
wait, what was your degree in? What did you end up graduating with? History. Or were you?
Well, so
history
of science.
Okay.
Yeah. Initially, I was mechanical engineering because I wanted to build rides for Disneyland. That was like, I wanted to be an Imagineer. That was my dream. But I was awful at physics, so that got shot down.
Okay, so now
history of science because it was like the most convenient thing I could switch to at the time, and I actually did enjoy it because I was like obviously really interested in nutrition at the time, kind of after that aha moment. So I got to like tie everything back to nutrition, which was cool. But yeah, so did not graduate in anything important. Pretty much like, unless you wanted to become a historian of science and like go through a PhD program, like, you weren't going to use that degree. But I graduated and was like, okay, well, I'll run a hockey camp in Arizona and I'll run a hockey camp in Colorado to like give back to those communities. And then like I'm going to go figure out what else I'm going to do. And what was interesting is that I started like setting up these camps and I started realizing there are a lot of other states out there where there are girls playing and nobody is going and giving them the time of day. And I was like, there have to be other places like Phoenix where this is a thing. So I started Googling the most random states I could think of. Like I was like, Alabama girls hockey, New Mexico girls hockey, Montana girls hockey. And by doing so, I started finding contact info and I started just like cold emailing people. And that was how my business started. And I ran like 10 camps in my first year. And they're all for girls. And it's awesome. Like my first year, I go to Whitefish, Montana. Have you guys ever been to Whitefish?
No.
Super small mountain town. It's beautiful. It's like right in Glacial Park. You should go someday because it is very beautiful. It's a touristy destination, but very small girls hockey community. I went there my first year. I had like maybe 25 girls. Now I get like 60 plus. I get girls coming down from Canada. Like it's awesome. So I went from not wanting to do anything in hockey to creating this business. And what's interesting is I really fell in love with the back end of it. And that's what led me to go and get my MBA from Arizona State. And that's kind of how I made this transition to like, wait a second, I can do hockey and business at the same time. And that's kind of what like helped me realize like, wait a second, maybe I can stay in hockey. And like, it was just, so that was kind of a cool thing. And I still do my camps to this day. I'm supposed to do one in a month. We'll see what happens with Corona. I'm thinking of pivoting and trying an online model and seeing how that goes, but we'll see.
Yeah, it could be cool.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've been talking to a lot of my friends. They've been seeing a lot of success. Like people are willing to pay to learn from you, like stick handling over a computer. And right, exactly.
I did just that. I took a class virtually because I've started to learn during quarantine at my oldish age. And I did. I mean, it works. It's hard to do more than just stick handling in a virtual setting, but I'm sure you can figure out, how to teach other things. But yeah, I mean, it's a workable method.
And it's just another side of your business that you can ultimately end up growing and becoming like a subscription model and send out,
Yep. Well, I'm already piloting one right now, so I'll send it to you guys. You guys can be part of the pilot.
Yeah, let me know. Right. I'll be happy to test it out at my small apartment, see if it works and report back. But I was going to say, so tell us a little bit more about how do you think the future of women's hockey is going to grow, being that you are consulting with the NHL, which is a huge part of growing the sport, I think, and bringing in the, some of your teammates and the women in the 3-on-3 tournament in the All-Star game this year for the NHL, and even in years past, having Kendall Coyne on the ice, and what needs to be done? How can we help grow the women's sport in a professional way?
Yeah.
To a professional level, rather.
Right. Obviously it's kind of a weird time right now in professional women's hockey. I remember the NWHL started up right after my senior year. It was kind of weird. I think we were all coming back from the Frozen Four, and we're sitting in the airport, and like all of us, because they basically were asking like every D1 player, all of us who were seniors like got this email on our phone being like, we're starting up this professional league. And the CWHL was still around at the time, Canadian Women's Hockey League, and
which is now not existent, which is crazy.
So it's, I mean, I had already made my decision to not play, but they came out of the gate. They had 4 teams. And then it kind of, a lot of the Olympians were in it, and the hockey was great, but the model wasn't quite sustainable yet. And then I think, basically what happened is a lot of the Olympic players were frustrated with the fact that they were calling it professional hockey, but it wasn't really professional hockey. It was a step above the CWHL, but they were still, staying in hotels 50 minutes away from the rink. They got $10 of per diem per meal or whatever. Like, you know, it wasn't quite professional yet. So that's when a lot of the players started up the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, and their goal is really to try to get the exposure and get the support and really kind of build up, not just in New England, which is primarily where the or in the Northwest, which is Northeast, which is primarily where all the NWHL teams are. They wanted to really showcase nationally. So we actually brought the PWHPA down a couple months ago, 2 months ago. It was an awesome event, phenomenal hockey. We got, because it was Arizona in March, we got like the best of the best players, which was really cool. But it's a weird time right now, and the NWHL just expanded to Toronto. They have a lot of new women in joining kind of the leadership group there, and it's going to be interesting to see. I think overall, in my opinion, like I said before we started this, you know, I have to stay relatively agnostic based on my position, but I'm in conversations on both sides. If anything, I want to try to continue to be a bridge in whatever way I can, because I do think, you know, there's a lot of frustration on both sides, and but I also think that the only way we're going to do this is if everybody's working together and pulling the rope in the same direction. So I think the politics will work itself out. But I think as far as what the general population can do to support it and help grow it, is like, it's super simple, but like, you have to watch it. You know, the reason these business models don't work is because if people aren't at the rink watching the games, then it's not sustainable. We ran our event here. They played 3 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The first 2 were against each other. And like I said, I mean, we had Kendall Coyne. We had Brianna Decker. We had big names here. And we played in a very small rink of like 700 people max. And we priced it at like $30 a ticket per day. And now, granted, like for a family of 4, you're spending, you know, $300, $400 for the weekend. But we really had to kind of like, thankfully, like I was here, and Katie, who played for the Whitecaps, we're all kind of in the association together. Like, we sat down with our parents for the Kachinas, and we're like, look, this whole event is specifically for you guys and your daughters. And we kind of had to like fight for it and say, look, like, we understand it's a little expensive. We understand that we ask you for a lot of money during the year, but this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that you're going to get to have them play in front of you at home. And how on earth will women's hockey ever get anywhere? How will your daughters have anything to dream for if you're not willing to pay $30 to have glass seats when you're willing, you know, like, and a lot of people are like, oh, I can go to a Coyotes game for $15. And it's like, yeah, if you're sitting in the upper bowl, like, you're literally sitting in the action. You can hear the players talking to each other on the ice. So we kind of had to have that heart-to-heart with our parents, and the event ended up, we didn't lower our prices, and the event ended up being really, really great. But I think that's where, like, people just have to continue, especially the hockey community, not just the women's and the girls' hockey community, but the men's side as well, have to start putting their money where their mouth is, and not just say that they're supporters of women's hockey, but prove that by watching it on TV, by posting about it on social media, by paying to go and attend these events. Because if we don't have that happen, it's going to be incredibly difficult for a women's league with the best of the best players to ever truly survive.
Yeah, you have to be the advocate. You have to be the action, not just say, yeah, women's hockey is great, but you have to actually go and support and start at the base level like you are with the parents, and going and just saying really clearly to them, this is the future for your daughter if you want this for her. Right. I think that's amazing.
We're seeing, I think one of the great things about like what they're showcasing on the NHL level is you're having a lot of male NHL fans seeing that And I think what's happening is now those men who have daughters, and they're trying to figure out like, okay, well, what's the pathway for my kid? Now they're starting to see like, okay, wow, the women's hockey is actually legit. It's a lot different than 20 years ago when I was a kid playing. And I think what we're going to see and what we're going to need to see is more and more of those male advocates saying to their buddies who have never seen a women's hockey game at the highest level, being like, hey man, like, watch this, look at this clip, tell me this isn't legit, like, watch the women at the All-Star game. And I think it's just going to be continuing to, the hockey community is big enough. We just have to make sure that everybody knows about it and believes in what we're doing.
Exactly. And I mean, I went to my first ever women's high level hockey game with the Team USA, Team Canada rivalry series. And it was like really shocking to me that that was the first time I'd ever seen like the highest level of women playing. And honestly, on the ice, it was not like I was watching women per se, right? I was just watching a killer hockey game between two teams who wanted to kick each other's ass on the ice. There's this heated rivalry. It was amazing hockey. It was so skilled. It was so entertaining. And there was press about it. And I went to the game in Anaheim, the final game of that series. And it was the highest, the most, what's the phrasing for it? Most attended, right, of any game. So there is proof that the sport is growing and people are showing up to watch the women play in different capacities. And it was so exciting. I was like, this is just as much fun to watch, because if you love hockey, and I think hockey fans would agree that we just love hockey. Like, we love watching whoever's playing. It can be men, women, anything. It doesn't matter. If it's good hockey, it's good hockey. And I think it's exciting to see that there's a lot coming down the pipeline in the future. So do you have any final advice for, young women who are interested in playing the sport?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the big thing that I tell people, and the reason that I do what I do, is because everything that I've ever had in my life has come through this sport. Whether it's my friendships, my memories with my family as a kid on the road, going to hockey tournaments, my education, my career, in a weird roundabout way, my relationship, like everything I've ever had that's good in my life has come through hockey. And that's really what I try to communicate with every parent that I interact with who's maybe a little unsure about their daughter playing, is what your daughter is going to get out of this is going to be worth every penny you ever spend. It's going to be worth every second you spend freezing your butt off watching her at a rink. It's going to be worth everything, because she's going to develop confidence. She's going to make friends and memories that are going to last for a lifetime. And it's going to be one of the most amazing journeys as a family that you'll ever go on. So that's what I tell kids. That's what I try to tell their parents. I'm proof of it. There's a reason we have so many women who come back to Arizona and get involved in our program, because we all want the same thing for these kids, because we know how much it did for us.
I like that. Well, Rachel and I always talk about too, and one of the things we like talking about on our podcast is what makes the sport so special. And I think you just saying it's so family oriented, that I think that's kind of what we always end up getting out of it. So it's good to hear from you.
It's a small community. I mean, and I tell kids this who are like 15, 16, looking at colleges. I'm like, we're in Albuquerque right now. But I'm telling you, the women's hockey community is small enough that if you, like, I scare them a little bit. I'm like, if you screw around at my camp, I'm going to remember that. And if I ever have a college coach say, hey, I heard you do camps in Albuquerque. Do you know this girl? I'm going to remember you if you were that kid that was messing around at camp. So, but it really is that small. It's everybody knows everybody. And that's one of the most magical things about it. So I would just say, use it to your advantage, and it's going to be that family for life for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we always like to ask the two fun questions. Sorry, I'm gonna cough real quick.
Go ahead.
Two fun questions at the end of every episode. So, who is your favorite hockey hunk?
Hockey hunk. Ooh. I don't know if I'd call him my favorite hockey hunk, but as far as like who has my heart, it would definitely be Shane Doan. He obviously for Arizona has been instrumental here, and he's a good looking dude, and he's a nicer person. So he actually came when we did that PWHPA event. They did one of the games against Coyotes alumni, and he and I played together for that, which was awesome. He's a really, really great guy.
Yeah, and he was a good captain too.
Mm-hmm.
He was. So who's your favorite hockey lady?
Favorite hockey lady? Man. That is hard. I will say that I think one of the women that I respect more than anyone is Josephine Pucci, who I played with at Harvard and I played with on the Olympic team. She would be a great one for you to have on your podcast if you ever have the time, or if she ever has the time. But she's just like the most hard-working, down-to-earth person I've ever met. Works for every inch she gets, and she got a horrible concussion right before, like the year before the Olympics. Had to like take a year off of school, recover, managed to stick with it, made the Olympic team. Like, crazy story. Made the Olympic team, and ended up finishing her career at Harvard with me, and then went on to become a doctor in the Army. So she is currently serving. So she is an incredible human being who I look up to as a friend and as a hockey player.
That's insane.
Wow. Those are stories that need to be shared, and I'm really glad that you mentioned her and gave us a little glimpse of her story and all of the other stories. I feel like we have to have you back on. So like we've laid the groundwork, and now I feel like we have to have you back to tell like some really great stories, or like funny stories, or anything that's like, happened throughout your career. I feel like we need to do just like a straight story episode with you.
I'm so down. Come up with some topics, and as you can tell, I will just run. I'll go.
Yeah. Yes. So thank you. Tell everybody where they can follow you, how they can get in touch with you, how they can attend camps, all the stuff.
Yeah. So my Instagram handles, I have two. I kind of have my personal one where I do a lot of like my mental performance coaching stuff. So that one's Lyndsey_Fry_18. You'll find me. Just make sure you spell Lyndsey with a Y, not an I. And then you can also follow my Fry Hockey accounts. And then as far as camps, it's a little weird with coronavirus right now, but you can go to fryhockey.com. If I end up going that online route, that's open to anybody who wants to do it nationally. So that would be second week of June. So if you are interested in that, I'm like 99% sure that's the route I'm going to go. So you can find information on there for that. And there's a lot of different ways to find me. I'm happy to connect and happy to help where I can.
Well, thank you so much, Lyndsey. This was awesome. You shared so much light on women's hockey and your journey, and I think it's really inspiring. And I'm excited to watch it grow for women in the sport, and seeing you at the helm, as one of the major leaders in this is amazing. So thanks for taking the time to tell everybody about it.
Yeah, of course. And thank you guys. This was a lot of fun, and I always enjoy talking to anybody who wants to advocate for women's hockey. So thank you guys for all that you do.
Thanks for coming over to our House of Hockey podcast and hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And in the meantime, you can follow us on social media. Just look for House of Hockey podcast. We'll be back next week.